Follow up is king. Every marketing strategy works if you take action and are super consistent with it. And that's what I got from the acquisition side.
I agree. I think that was one for me. That was a true testament of your following up. Otherwise, we would not have gotten that deal and made over 6 figures in 4 months.
Yep.
Like, that's a big deal. That's a huge win.
And if you don't know, I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. It's all good.
Welcome to another deep dive. Before we really get into it, can you guys please like, subscribe, and share our channel with as many people as you can? If you get any value out of this, our goal really for this is to impact as many lives as we can. We want to show people that they can also do this, and that with some consistent action, it's possible for anyone.
And what better way to do that by just sharing what we're doing, by breaking down our deals, authentically sharing our story, going, through the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's how we hope to create more impact, is just by sharing our story, the deals we're doing, the struggles we're having, the successes, all of that. So if you're digging it, you feel like it's helpful, like, subscribe, follow, comment. Let's go.
Let's go. So this week's deep dive, we're going to be talking about a property
on the west side
of Oahu. So it's actually our first property that we did out there on the west side. We did this property in 2021.
Right.
Yep. Renovated and sold. And we'll dig into it. I think just for the audience, the west side of Oahu is, I would say most of our native Hawaiian population lives out on the west side.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Hawaiian homelands.
It's considered the more affordable side of the island, where you can still get into homes for less than $1 million. So, and it's beautiful. It's an absolutely stunning part of the island. You have these mountain ranges with valleys and greenery, and then you have these beaches. It's just an amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing place filled with amazing people
and culture
and culture.
People. Yeah.
So we got this opportunity, and I mean, this house was a very fun one to do for me.
Okay, so you ready?
Yeah.
How did we get that deal?
Okay, so how we got this deal. This deal came from a text message.
Yep, SMS, when we were blasting out SMS.
Yep, so this is when we were doing SMS marketing, and honestly, this is before we had a team or anything. This SMS was sent out by me.
Yeah.
So I would sit at home every day and send text messages out, and this is one of the text messages that I sent out.
This deal is a true testament to follow-up.
Correct.
Because you made initial contact with this seller months and months and months and months before we ever turned it into a contract.
I think 7 months.
So your first touch, do you remember when your first touch actually was?
First touch was in the beginning of 2021. Okay. So it was in like January or February. I sent out a text message, and honestly...
correction. We actually got it under contract and fell out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But we'll talk about that. We actually... So initial text message that goes out is, hey, I'm an investor in the area. Wondering if you'd ever thought about a cash offer on your property. This guy responded fairly quickly. We got into some dialogue, decided that, he wanted to work with us, basically. So we went out to the house.
He did not do email. He did not do computers. He wanted everything in person, face-to-face, hard paper. So, I remember that very distinctly.
Yep. So I looked at the deal. I looked at the area. It is on one of the main roads in Waianae. It's off Farrington Highway. So it's house, Farrington Highway, and then the ocean, the beach.
The beach park, yeah.
Yep. So, but that Farrington Highway is a very busy intersection that runs almost all of West Side.
So I was very hesitant because we're taught to avoid main busy roads.
Right.
That's actually a deterrent for a lot of buyers. So I was very skeptical in the beginning, but once I saw the property, it was pushed back off the street and there was ample parking. So it kind of allowed me to wrap my head around it more and see the potential.
Yeah. So I initially underwrote the deal and we went in with an offer price of, I think it was $390 or $385.
I think it was $385.
Yeah, $385. He agreed to that price.
We opened escrow and everything.
Escrow.
And he chose the escrow. He chose the escrow company and agent because it was his wife's friend.
Right.
Yeah.
So like Tristyn said, he wanted everything signed in ink, like person to person. So I drove out to his house. We got the contract signed, locked it up, but there was tenants in the house. So we actually initially got into contract with tenants in place. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so ran all of my numbers just by pictures. We didn't even get to walk the house yet because the tenants were in place. He was in the process of getting the tenants out.
Right.
Right.
But I clearly remember once that opportunity arose where the tenants left and then we were able to walk the property, it uncovered some things that we hadn't budgeted for. So
Correct.
we had to go back and negotiate. Remember walking the property, everything was like as stated, as he said, except for what?
The foundation. So there was some major foundation issues that he wasn't even necessarily aware of. We walked it with our contractor. Contractors came back and said, hey, this is actually a lot more extensive than you thought.
Right.
So we left that day. I got back in contact with him. I was like, hey, listen, the only way that this deal makes sense for us is if we buy it for a lot cheaper. And like I told him, we needed to get this house for $350.
Yeah.
He said, nope, I don't want to do it. And we ended up falling out of escrow. We fell out of escrow because we couldn't agree on that $350 number that I was looking for after we found out there were all those issues.
Yeah, we needed a price reduction and he wasn't willing to do that at the time.
Right.
So we stuck to our buy box.
Right. So we started doing other deals. This property, and one of the cool things about this house is it's really a true testament to how follow-up works and how important follow-up is. So, okay, we couldn't agree on a price. We fell out of escrow. I threw the lead away and I never talked to that person again.
False.
No. What we did is we put him into our system and we put him on a follow-up campaign. So every month I would reach back out to Edward and we would check in with him to see how the property was doing. And I did this for 7 months.
For a while. And I remember his feedback to you kind of for a while was, I'm going to do the myself. I'm going to renovate it myself.
Right. That was his thing was he's like, okay, well, I don't want to sell it for that much. I'm just going to do the renovation myself. Come about August. So this was like January, February is when we first touched him. This is all the way in August. I get a text message from Edward and he's like, Kamohai, are you still interested in the house?
Wait, pause. But this was the weird thing. Like this was like the eerie universe forces working outside of yourself. Is we had done a Deals in Aloha meetup at our homies project out in Waianae. It was Dodge and Edgar's duplex that they had built.
Right.
And we were out there, I don't know, for half of the day. It was a great meetup, super fun. And so we drove past the house going into Waianae and then leaving Waianae. And that night he texted you.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest thing ever because we don't get out to Waianae very often. We're from the east side. It's rare. The only time we go out there is if there's a deal that we're working or whatever. We don't necessarily go out there for leisure.
Totally.
You know what I mean? We usually go out there for work. So it was just weird.
It was weird. It was the universe working. But so he texts and he's like, hey, Kamohai, are you interested in buying? I decided I do not want to do the renovations. I really actually need to sell the house. So we started conversing, come to find out that he was in a tough situation and really needed to actually move
I
forward.
think both of their healths were declining.
Right.
They needed money.
The thing is that we were following up with him consistently every single month. So when that situation came up with Edward, he was the first person that popped into his head
Was you.
was me. If we hadn't been following up and building that rapport continuously, when it was time for him to sell, we would have not been on his mind at all.
Right.
Right. So I ended up telling him, I was like, yes, we're super interested still, but we need to get it for a lot less than we're in escrow for.
Yeah.
And he's like, what is the best you can do? So what I did, because this was in 2021, we're now 7-8 months later.
Mm-hmm.
I went and reran all the numbers on the property.
Right.
Originally, our ARV
650.
was 650.
Yeah.
When I was looking at numbers now, 7 months later,
Yep.
come to find out houses are selling above 700.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, we can actually pay a lot more for this house. So Edward and I agreed on a $365,000 purchase price.
Yep.
And that's what we did. We locked it up. I went back out to his house, signed the contract again, and we closed on this contract 30 days later.
So we ended up buying this property in September of 2021. So September 3rd of 2021 to be exact. And we purchased it, like you said, for $365,000. We also paid your marketing company a $10,000 acquisition fee.
Yep.
And I think that's a pro tip for fix and flippers in this space, because a lot of times we get paid very, very last. As fix and flippers, we eat last. It's just the nature of the game. So how do you run a business where you're not making any money for 6, 9, 12 months sometimes? You know what I mean? It's hard. So what we were taught to do is to pay yourself an acquisition fee on the front end. It shouldn't be something substantial. It just needs to be whatever the deal can afford. And so for this one, we're like, let's give marketing $10,000, and that's how you keep your marketing machine going, is through acquisition fees on the front end. So that's like a pro tip right there.
Yeah.
And then we started working on it right away. So we got our contractor in there, and his bid was for $146,000. And so we did everything to that house. The only thing that was really solid on that house was a roof.
Yep.
We never had to touch the roof.
Roof and siding. We never changed the siding on the house.
Correct. So we touched windows. We had to rebuild steps. We reinforced the foundation. Essentially, we touched the entire
major foundation work.
We double walled that house, new electrical, new plumbing. There was also a major plumbing issue. The plumbing had to be completely redone. We reconfigured the primary bathroom because it was
tiny.
It was so tiny to the point where you're right when you walk into the door, your stomach was hitting the sink. It was just. It made no sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we stole from a closet in the hallway and pushed the bathroom into the closet and made it a functional space. And other than that, we landscaped and put up a vinyl fence. And the crew worked extremely quick.
So quick.
And it was amazing. That was our first time actually using that new contractor for the first time. So we were a little bit hesitant. I think anytime you use a new contractor, you're learning.
Yeah.
You're learning how that contractor works. They're learning how you work. It's a song and a dance, and sometimes it can go terribly wrong. We've had them go terribly wrong.
Yes.
But this time it went very, very well.
Yep.
And so we finished renovations quickly. We finished renovations at the end of November.
Yeah.
So this was September, October, November. We renovated for 3 months.
3 months on a full gut with major foundation issues. So
and
that's a lot.
We had to pour a brand new driveway.
We did.
Before there was no driveway. So the streets here, and the property sets down kind of below grade of the street. So it was just not substantially, but there was just red dirt. Just red dirt, no clear, concise like parking pad or anything like that. And I was like, well, if we're really going to bring quality over here, let's pour a parking pad from the road down onto the designated area where cars should park. And we created 4 parking stalls, I would
At
say.
least.
At least.
Yeah.
And then we added more gravel on the one side for additional parking so that they could turn around, and made that property totally secure.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember how many trees we removed from that property?
Yeah, tons. Didn't we actually have Kana'i come and clean it out in the beginning?
Yeah, so Kana'i's roll-offs, shout out to Kana'i, they came out and they cleared out a lot of the debris that was left around the house. So there was like sheds and I think an engine, I'm not positive, and like random stuff, a lot of plastic bottles too.
Right.
All around the house. So they had to clear that out. And there were trees, I would say every 2 feet around the entire perimeter of the house.
Yeah.
And they were just rubbish trees. Do you remember what kind of trees they were?
No.
Yeah. And so we removed all of those.
Right. So
and
let me ask you this. How did we fund the deal?
we fund the deal with hard money, a little over 80% of hard money, and then the rest was private money. So of the 365, we funded 300,000 was hard money, and then we used private money for the renovation and the rest of the down payment and holding costs.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and,
we finished the renovation. What were the biggest struggles that we came up? And honestly, I was thinking about this question.
a foundation.
I remember though, like overall, this was probably one of the smoothest, quickest renos that we've had.
Yeah. I think we were in a period of adding team members onto our team as well. So I think there was just a lot of new happening at that time, and it wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't say like a struggle. It was just something that we were navigating. We had a new project manager at the time, Monica, and she did amazing. She was at that job every single day, pretty much. We had a new contractor that we hadn't worked with. So that was new, all just new.
Right.
But I also think that the renovation was a little bit more than we anticipated, because I think we budgeted like 130, 140 for the renovation. We ended up, the total renovation cost for this house was $158,000. And that included everything. So landscaping, the foundation repair, all material costs, appliances, everything. So we were a little over budget, and I was worried about that. But having evaluated the deal 3 months prior, the ARV was still holding strong. So we were still in the clear. But I will say, when you're working with contractors, and we got multiple bids on this house, but we always want quality, I think, over quantity. And that's with everything in our business.
Right.
We're not a volume business, we're a quality business. So if the contractor comes back and his bid is higher than the rest, but he can move quick and the finish doesn't go down the drain because you moved quick, it's a win-win because it evens out.
Right.
Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think for us as investors, we're always looking for the unicorn contractor.
They don't exist.
Honestly, they don't exist. But we want somebody that isn't going to charge us retail, has good pricing, works super, super, super fast, finishes stuff real quick, and has the best quality.
And usually you'll get 2.
And that's the thing. So there is no contractor out there that has all those 3 things. But if you can find one that has 2 of those things, then that's a contractor that we will normally work with. If you got only one of those things, doesn't matter what it is, sorry, it's not going to happen.
You should fire that contractor and find another one. Yeah, because one isn't going to be enough.
Right. So those 2 things can actually be different. So like if they have a really good price, right, and they hit the price, and their finish is good, but their time maybe takes a little bit longer, that's okay. We can potentially work with that.
Work with that.
Right. Or if they work really, really fast and they have good finish, but their price is a lot higher,
Can work with that.
we can work with that. So we're normally looking for 2 out of those 3 things.
And the reason why you can work with that is because they even each other out. And what I mean when I say that is the amount you pay for holding the property, and the amount that you pay for whatever you budgeted over your construction, they even each other out. So you're still kind of at the same number. if that makes sense, as far as your profit margin is concerned.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So in this one, we had great finish. We actually had it all.
Yeah, this was a good one.
On this one, he was a little bit more expensive than what we were used to, but he wasn't crazy expensive.
He was the highest bid.
He was
on
the
job.
highest bid on the job, but he moved extremely quick. And to date, he still has the best finish.
Yeah, had a really good job finish
Finish-wise. Really good finish. But the most challenging was, so the new and then the foundation. We had fixed it and then we had to go back and reinforce some more. So that was a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
But other than that, and then also, geez, now thinking back to it, it was a lot of new because we also used a new realtor to sell the house that we had never used before.
Right.
So we finished this house, like I said, end of November, got it cleaned and staged
Photos
and
taken.
listed, and we ended up selling it relatively quick. In December, we sold it on December 20th of 2021, and we sold it for $726,000, but we listed for much higher.
No, we didn't list for higher. We actually listed for lower, but we got over asking offers. So we actually listed this house at, what did we list it at? I think we listed it at $699.
No way.
Yeah. $699 or $675 is where we listed. We ended up getting offers at $750.
Okay, that's what it was.
And then we ended up accepting an offer at $750, but then the appraisal came in.
Yeah.
And
it was
we
a
had
Tidewater.
Right, because it was a VA buyer, and then we had to fight the appraisal.
Yeah.
Because the appraisal, I think, came in at like $710 or something.
Yeah, and we knew that the value was there. And so I think we did fight it once, and they came up a little bit. We got to get up.
They came up to $721, and that's what we ended up selling it for.
$726.
Yeah. $726.
Yeah, so we sold it for $726, and I think we made about $120,000 on that house.
Yep.
And it was a huge win. And it turned out it was the first time I had used pattern tile.
Yes, it was.
And you fought me on it for a minute because pattern tile is tricky. Like it can be too much. If it's not used correctly, it can be really, really loud. But I was like, no, just trust me. Let's go with this like tan pattern tile. It won't be too much.
Yeah.
And I think it turned out really good.
Yeah. I loved it. I think that because of how we used it,
how it was
made
used.
sense,
So
right? So it wasn't,
kitchen.
it was kitchen backsplash and then accent.
Yeah, well, it was on the floors, it was in niches, and it was kitchen backsplash. And you know me, I'm very white and black. I love me like the black accent and everything else being light. Oh, we also, the original flooring that we wanted to use wasn't in stock. So we went to this different flooring place, and you were like, oh my gosh, that is too dark. And it did. It was really scary. It looked really, really dark in photos when it started to get laid. But then when we saw it in person, I was like, okay, this vibes. Like, this is okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. It made sense.
And it actually turned out that I love that flooring.
Yeah, I don't think we've used it anywhere else, though.
No, we've never used it anywhere else.
It doesn't make sense
It's
in
more
any other houses.
expensive, actually.
Yeah.
It was more expensive, so that's why we hadn't used it. I think I got it from Velour Flooring. But they have great selections of flooring, and I will use them again. It just has to fit the vibe.
Yep.
But I remember this very clearly. This was another challenge. So it was the first time we did, because we were on this super busy road. We're like, we need a gate from the road. You can't have this opening from your yard that goes straight out to the main road.
Yeah.
We need this gate.
Not if a family was going to live there.
And I always, because we have a family, as a rehabber and a designer, I'm always like, it's so weird to call myself a designer. It really is very uncomfortable. Anyway, I'm always like, would I allow my kids to be in this yard?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then we have to do something, because I'm always thinking of a family buying our homes and raising kids in their homes. So I was like, we have to build this gate. And it was this long gate. It was like 10 feet.
Yeah, it was big.
Huge.
It was really big.
And so I remember they were missing a piece, but we were trying to push for the open house and get it done. And it was really windy that day. And the gate flew over.
Yeah, fell over. I remember getting a text from Monica Gate fell over at the open house. Yeah.
That sucked. So, and that was because we rushed, as most investors do, to try and push the finish and get it done and just get it listed instead of waiting for the final little things to come in.
Yeah.
So pro tip, maybe don't rush. Wait for the final little things to come in.
Sometimes you literally have no choice.
Sometimes.
And you just got to do it.
I agree.
And then you figure it the frick out.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I feel like on this one, we probably could have waited a week.
I think, well, what I feel like is you got to look at what kind of a market you're in as well.
True.
So like in that market, it still made sense. We pushed, we figured it out. Now, if you're in today's market,
that could kill the deal.
Exactly,
100%.
where buyers have so much control.
Yeah.
The market is now shifted from a seller's to a buyer's market.
Yeah.
Buyers are so picky, right? And that could have caused somebody to fall out of escrow or somebody to ask for a lot of money in credits or something.
Yeah.
So
not understanding that, we were missing a part. A very essential part.
Yeah.
So
mental.
we ended up fixing that, and it never became an issue again. But that was definitely fun times.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, we net over $100,000 on this house.
Yeah.
It was a pretty quick in and out.
Yeah.
Full gut. I mean, what are some of the lessons that we learned? I mean, what are some of the takeaways, I guess, to round it out? For me on my side, takeaways are you can do any type of marketing in Hawaii and it will work as long as you are consistent and do it full out with everything that you have.
Yeah.
After that, follow up is king.
Yeah.
It will always be. So you got to squeeze all the juice out of every lead you have and make sure, because guys,
especially if they have motivation, like, that there's motivation.
Well,
why would you not follow up?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But a lot of times you might not necessarily, there might not be the most motivation there right off the bat, and it might not be blaring at you and hitting you in the face, but following up is going to ensure that you stay top of mind. And that's honestly the goal for us, because things change. People's situations change, and they change very radically. So if you are consistently following up and you're staying on top of mind, then when that situation changes, then boom, that seller is going to reach out to you because you just talked with them last week or you just sent them a text message last week. So follow up is king. Every marketing strategy works if you take action and are super consistent with it. And that's what I got from the acquisition side.
I agree. I think that was one for me. That was a true testament of your following up. Otherwise, we would not have gotten that deal and made over 6 figures in 4 months.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal. That's a huge win. It was a great way to end the year for us, too. A big takeaway for me was don't be afraid to try new things with new people, because that's really what that deal was. It was a new project manager. It was a new contractor. It was a new realtor. So don't get so stuck in your current ways and fear of trying something new, because ultimately it will hold you back. And it was scary times, but if you have the systems in place, like we had all of our contractor docs and we were thorough and we used our Slack channel and we had meetings, it will help navigate those new relationships if you have the current systems in place. And yeah, so that's my biggest takeaway was I'm glad that we made the choice to dive into unknown territory, because now it's those relationships are a part of our business.
Right.
That contractor that we used for the first time on this deal now has done several.
Right.
And it's allowed us to scale our business. And if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to be where we are today.
Right.
So, and take risks with design. I think it's fun to take calculated and tasteful risk, and stay true to what you feel.
What you feel, what you believe in, and what you know. I feel like being bold
Yeah.
is something that a lot of real estate investors don't do. You know what I mean? And honestly,
They play it
it's
safe.
like
They play it
in
safe.
certain places, like we're risk averse. Real estate investors take a ton of freaking risk a lot of times, but then why then do they are so reserved on like some parts
Of
of design
Yeah.
is I think holds people back. And I get the whole systematizing, use the same materials, same things, but I think in this market and moving forward, it's going to be important to be bold. So be bold, trust in yourself, and let's go.
I think the key is to try new things in a tasteful manner that still appeals to the masses. So when I say try new things, use color palettes that are pretty neutral, earthy tones and neutral that will still appeal to the most people. Like if you want to take a risk, I wouldn't take like a bright pink risk or like a purple or a yellow risk. You know what I mean? Like you take a risk in a manner that's still palatable for majority of people, like your beiges, your whites, your grays, you know,
Blue.
black. Well, blue can get crazy too, but like a tasteful, like a sky.
Well, I
blue.
mean, I think that's everything can get crazy and can't be crazy. So like you could do like a dope army green, but like you got to do it.
Love army
Right,
green.
but you got to do it very well. So I think it's hard to give advice on like using those kinds of things. It's
I just did. So
Well, I mean, it's more of I mean, it has to be. That's the goal. The overall picture is tasteful and still tasteful, bold, but like appealing to the most people.
yeah,
Yeah, it's difficult.
it's super hard.
Yeah, I know.
But
Okay.
yeah, take calculated risks. But yeah, though that is our West Side deal deep dive off of Farrington Highway, our beach bungalow.
Beach bungalow.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was a great fun project.
Yep. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.
Like, subscribe, follow. Peace.
I'm blowing up like you thought I would. It's